Raider Nation, you can take a deep breath. The Silver and Black have their guy, Klint Kubiak, signed, sealed, and delivered, and will meet with the media later on today. That plus more comes up on Tuesday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for February 10th, 2026.
You are Locked On Raiders, your daily Las Vegas Raiders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your number one sports podcast network. Of course, we're very proud of that. We're also very proud of the fact that this show continues to grow each and every day because of your consistent support. We shout you out. We appreciate you. We salute you, Raider Nation. And also the great job that my man Ari does behind the scenes, making sure that we look good and sound good by way of the YouTube page. So we also shout him out. He's on Twitter at Ari Produces. You can hit me up as well at your boy Q254. And we got the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line for you if you want to be a part of the show, 707-654-4693. As we normally do, we'll hear from you as we close things out. Calls, texts, great feedback all the time, and we'll do that in segment number 3. We'll get as many calls and texts in as possible. Segment number 2, Klint Kubiak will meet with the media 11 a.m. Pacific time today at the Raiders facility, and we'll have some questions. At least I have some questions that I'd love to get the answer to, or at least get some kind of response to from Klint Kubiak. So we'll go over those questions, the 5 questions that I really want to get the answer to, one way, one how, from Klint Kubiak, the new head coach of the Raiders. So we'll talk about that, discuss it in segment number 2. Here in segment number 1, news and notes of the day, and you got it. It's all about the new head coach for the Raiders. We'll jump into that after I tell you about the title sponsor of the show, which is FanDuel. The winter games are on. There's no better way to follow them than with a bet on FanDuel. FanDuel, play your game. So it didn't take very long. We knew after Super Bowl 60 got wrapped up, Klint Kubiak would at some point make his way to Las Vegas, sign his contract, and be good to go and have an introductory press conference. Well, it didn't take long on Monday. Klint Kubiak and his family arrived in Las Vegas. They went to the facility. They hammered out a contract, and boom, it's done. He'll meet with the media today. So the Raiders, they put it out there on their social media. They sent an email to all the media, let it be known that Klint Kubiak was, in fact, in the mix. And I saw a lot of great reaction on social media and just in general from Raider Nation, happy that their guy is now signed, sealed, and delivered. And you'll hear from him coming up this morning at 11 a.m. Pacific time. So just part of what the Raiders put out, the Raiders officially announced Klint Kubiak as the team's new head coach. They're giving him a 5-year contract, sources told ESPN's Adam Schefter, and he's the 5th head coach since 2021, since the time I've been here in Las Vegas. You've had John Gruden, Josh McDaniels, Antonio Pierce, Pete Carroll, and now Klint Kubiak. So those are the details. The 5-year contract, I think, was critical. That was something that we talked about when it came to how does the Raiders as an organization, how do they prove to the next head coach candidate that they're going to be patient, allow him the time to let this thing grow, as opposed to you have to get it done right away or not, you might be one and done. The way to do it, give him a 5-year contract. We discussed it many times. I thought 5 years, 6 years was going to be the range and what they were going to do. And that, in fact, is exactly what they did with the 5-year contract. So, again, going back to some of the little piece that the Raiders dropped on Klint Kubiak, they said in his one season in Seattle, Kubiak helped the Seahawks offense behind quarterback Sam Darnold, ranked 3rd in points, 28.4 per game, 8th in total yards at 351.4, tied for 10th in rushing yards, 123.3, 8th in passing yards, 228.1, 13th in offensive efficiency, 50.76, and 15th in EPA, 30.86 during the regular season. And again, he'll be formally introduced this morning. So really the numbers that I'm looking at, points per game, 28.4, right? The Raiders averaged, 14 points per game last year? With Antonio Pierce, they averaged, 19 points per game? They haven't been able to get to 24. And I'm not saying that they're going to be able to get to 24 year one with Klint Kubiak, because he's got a lot of heavy lifting he's got to do. He's got to get the offensive line. He's got to get the weapons in place, got to get that run game going, led by Ashton Genty. I think all those things are going to happen, but I'm not saying that it's going to happen immediately. So don't expect the Raiders to all of a sudden be putting up 28 points per game immediately. Now, if they do, they're going to win a whole hell of a lot of games, right? And obviously with the rushing attack being 123.3 yards per game, 10th in the league, that'd be fantastic after you saw a Raiders team that was dead last in rushing in 2025. If they get anywhere near that 10th rushing in the league, right, obviously that's going to take an offensive line to be in place. It's going to have to take an offensive line that's going to have to understand how to use the zone blocking scheme, because that's what the Shanahans do, and that's what the Kubiaks do, is run that zone blocking scheme that normally has running backs playing really well Think about even his dad, Gary Kubiak, when he was in Houston, when he had Arian Foster. Remember how much Arian Foster used to lead the league in rushing all the time? He was just that guy. That was the zone blocking scheme. So when it's done correctly, you can have phenomenal running backs. And I think Ashton Genty, with his patience, with his ability, would be a dog in that scheme. But you got to have the right offensive lineman to know how to block it. And the Raiders, for some reason, have never been able to really execute that zone blocking scheme to the way that it's able to be, executed to perfection and have a lot of dominance. They're going to have to figure that out. Klint Kubiak's going to have to get the right guys in place. Outside of Seattle, and again, last year, going and being a Super Bowl champ was his only year in Seattle. 2024, he served as offensive coordinator for the Saints. 3 quarterbacks he worked with, including Derek Carr. 2023, he was with the San Francisco 49ers, offensive passing game specialist. Brock Purdy was the quarterback. He was working there. Obviously, Kyle Shanahan calls the plays in San Francisco. You know that. 2022, Kubiak served as offensive passing game coordinator and quarterbacks coach for the Broncos after coaching 3 seasons with the Minnesota Vikings from 2019 to 2021. So the first 2 seasons as quarterback coach and 1 year as offensive coordinator. So the 2 quarterbacks he was working with in that stint was Russell Wilson in Denver and Kirk Cousins in Minnesota. So that's basically what he's done for the last handful of years. And now he's going to have an opportunity to not have to worry about being, 1 year in a certain location and then out of there. He's going to have the time to be able to build this up, and hopefully he gets the second contract. He's got to worry about getting through the first contract first, but I would love to see him get to a second contract with the team. That means he's been very successful. Would love to see GM John Spytek get, extended as well. Obviously, there's a lot of work that they have to do before any of that even matters, but he's got the 5-year deal with the Silver and Black. He's going to be formally introduced to the media and Raider Nation at 11 a.m. Pacific time. The radio shows that we're going to be doing from Raider Nation Radio 920 will come from the indoor facility. Kubiak and others, including many Raider alumni, will go through the car wash. What's the car wash, you ask? ESPN used to do it all the time when people came to campus. They'd have people go and sit in on whatever radio show and do an interview there. And then they'd have them go to the TV side of things and do interviews there. Then they'd have them go to like the digital side of things and do interviews there. Well, they're going to have different stations set up in the indoor facility. So JT will be on live. He starts at noon. My show comes on at 2. So both of our shows will come to you live from the Raiders facility. Amber Theo-Harris and James Jones and Eric Allen and Kirk Morrison, all those guys, they're going to have their setups as well. So Kubiak will be making his rounds. So you'll hear plenty from the new head football coach coming up later on today. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm probably going to have to record a lot of interviews with some alumni because, again, the press conference starts at 11. I can imagine it's all going to be wrapped up by 2 o'clock, but I'll still be there. So I'll make sure that I handle my business and get a lot of different interviews and just reaction from guys that matter, part of the Raiders history and part of the Raiders organization as well. So that's something to look forward to. And anything I get really good from that, of course, I'll bring to the show coming up tomorrow as well. But Klint Kubiak, right? One of the big dominoes to drop. Obviously, they've got a lot of heavy lifting to do. They got to go through free agency. They got to get to the combine. They've got to go through the draft. They've got to just, figure out how to put this roster together. But they needed their head football coach. Oh, he's got to put a staff together. That's another big domino that's got to drop. But the biggest one of all was getting his name on the dotted line, right? Signed, sealed, and delivered. And Klint Kubiak, the next head football coach for your Las Vegas Raiders. So what questions need to be answered by Klint Kubiak? What questions would I like to hear him answer at his press conference at 11 a.m.? We'll talk about that coming up in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about the title sponsor of the show, and that is FanDuel. The Winter Games are officially here, and if you're anything like us, you're locking in for events you only get to see on the biggest stage every 4 years. And that's why following the Winter Games on FanDuel just makes sense. From medal counts to individual events to finding your angle on the sport you care about the most, FanDuel gives you more ways to stay connected to the action. And they've got all the drama, curling matches that start slow and somehow they get intense really quickly. Sound like the Super Bowl, right? Speed skating races decided by inches. Hockey games, they feel different right from the opening face-off, right? Fighting for the country. Even niche events becomes must-watch events when you're fully locked into the competition. And FanDuel keeps the entire Olympic experience engaged from start to finish. The Winter Games are on. You need to be a part of the action. There's no better way to follow them than with FanDuel. FanDuel, play your game. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Excited about the opportunity to be at the Raiders facility this morning to hear from the new head football coach, Klint Kubiak, a guy who has never been a head coach. He's only been an offensive coordinator. Obviously, it's going to be a little bit of a learning curve, but he seems like a guy who's been in the game for a very long time, has an opportunity to take that next step, and he chose the Raiders to be his first opportunity, which says something about what he believes in this organization, right? There's other jobs he could have taken. He was the hottest name out there. He interviewed with about 6 different organizations and ultimately landed on the Raiders. They have the number 1 overall pick. They have about $100 million in salary cap space. Tom Brady and John Spytek are leading the charge, right? And he's got the 5-year deal to be able to build this thing up. So you have to think that all of that played a role in him taking the job with the silver and black. But there are some questions that I do have that I'd like to ask him. And the first one is just about, what made this job the right one for you to get your first head coach opportunity? Because, again, these opportunities aren't guaranteed to come around again. If he flops for some reason as a head coach, there's no guarantee he's going to get another opportunity. So sometimes these guys are going to want to take their time and make sure it's the right job, right? Not just take any job. And again, when you had as many different teams that wanted his services, including the Raiders, what was it that stood out to him most about this job? So that's one of the first ones. And look, every one of these questions aren't going to be asked by me, because I'm not the only person in the room that's going to want to know the answers to these questions. So I know guys like Vinny Boston, you are very active in asking questions. Paul Gutierrez, myself, right? There'll be plenty of us in there asking questions. So it won't all necessarily be me asking all 5 of these, but before it's all said and done, before it gets wrapped up, somehow, some way, all 5 of these will be asked, including, just about the opportunity in general. Love to hear what makes him want to be the Raiders' next head football coach. Second, with Kenneth Walker III winning the Super Bowl MVP and the success Seattle had with him and Zach Charbonnet before he tore his ACL, what are your thoughts and even your excitement level to work with Ashton Jeanty, right? I mean, I talked about Ashton Jeanty immediately after the Super Bowl. Like, every time I saw Kenneth Walker carry the rock, all I saw on his back was not K9, I saw number 2. That's all I can envision, right? And when I saw their tight ends catching passes, all I could think of was 89. And 87, right, catching passes from Fernando Mendoza or whatever quarterback even starts the season, right? I mean, that's all I was doing. When I was watching that Super Bowl on Sunday, as much as a lot of people said, oh, it was boring, all I did is put different Raiders in the position of the guys that were actually out there playing offensively and seeing how Klint Kubiak uses them. But Ashton Jeanty was the guy that I thought of the most watching Kenneth Walker do what he does, and out there being very patient, allowing the hole to develop, and then boom, hitting it and going, putting his foot in the dirt and going. I think Ashton Jeanty is in for a big-time season. Obviously, they've got to put the offensive line in place, but just want to get his thoughts on Ashton Jeanty, what he sees from the former number 6 overall pick out of Boise State. Number 3 question that I want asked and will ask, or if it's not me, someone else will, to Klint Kubiak this morning. What are the characteristics that you need to be a successful offensive line in the zone blocking scheme? This, to me, is very important. It might not be very important to you. You might think that I'm making a bigger deal of it than necessary, and maybe I am. Maybe it's not a big deal. Maybe all these different offensive linemen are really versatile and they can figure it out. Maybe they'll have an offensive line coach that is so good at coaching it up, it'll be no problem, and these guys will go out there and execute. For me, I feel like that they've got to be a lot more athletic than a lot of the offensive linemen that the Raiders have. I feel like more times than not, the Raiders draft them to be power blocking offensive linemen, and then somehow, some way, they try to get switched up into a zone blocking scheme, and they just don't fit. That's just me. I'm not an offensive line coach. Obviously, Lincoln knows a lot better. We'll actually talk with Lincoln on the Raiders Squad show later on this morning. Chantel Chan and myself, 7:30 a.m. Pacific time. So I'll get his thoughts on that as well. And I know that a lot of these offensive linemen are versatile, but I would like to see what his thoughts are on the zone blocking scheme and the offensive lineman, like the traits he's looking for in those offensive linemen to go out there and execute it. Because, again, I want to see this blocking scheme succeed, and I think it's only going to benefit Ashton Jeanty in a major, major way if, in fact, they do. And it'll be like night and day compared to the offensive line that he had last year where he was trying to make a man miss by the time he even touched the ball. He's got to have some patience, which he does. He has that. And these guys are going to be blocking to a spot, blocking to the zone, and then boom, when that hole develops, he hits it, right? There was times in that game on Sunday you saw Kenneth Walker at a complete stop, a complete standstill before he took off, right? And that's just how it is sometimes, similar to what Le'Veon Bell did when he was at the peak of his game in Pittsburgh. I know Ashton Jeanty has that characteristics, and he can do that as well. So you got to get the right guys in place with a zone blocking scheme. Again, I'm giving you the 5 questions that I look to get answered from Klint Kubiak when he meets with the media later on this morning. Number 4 might be number 1 for a lot of people. How much do you need Max Crosby to buy into your approach, your philosophies, setting the tone for the rest of the locker room? How quickly do you need to meet with them? Obviously, Max Crosby's name has been in the news quite a bit. There's articles that seem like they come out every single day. There's rumors and report. You do what you want to do with them, right? I always feel like that there's 3 sides to the story. There's one side, there's another side, and then somewhere in the middle there's the truth. So at some point we'll find out exactly what the truth is. Is Max Crosby going to play with the Raiders in 2026? Is he going to get traded? You know, what's going to happen? My gut feeling, as I mentioned before, he plays with the Raiders in 2026, especially after he meets with Klint Kubiak and he sells them on his plan and his vision for this team, which, again, is very important. The Raiders should not be in the business of allowing really good players to get out of the building. They don't have enough really good, top-notch, blue-chip players to get out of the building, to allow just guys to get out of the building like Max Crosby. He's under contract, so it's not like that they have to, do something. Jason LaConfora, he was actually on my radio show on Monday. He put out a report that Max has basically told Tom Brady that he's not going to, take another snap for the Raiders. I don't buy that. But that's the report he put out. So I had him on just to talk about it, just to hear what he had to say. Take it for, like I said, with a grain of salt. Jay Glazer, he basically backtracked on what he said. Diana Rossini pretty much did the same thing. And Jason was kind of, well, this is what's going on, but it doesn't mean that that's going to actually happen because, well, we heard the same thing from Myles Garrett. And that's just kind of part of of what these guys do and say stuff like that. So, again, who knows what the truth is? It'll all come out in the wash sooner rather than later. But Klint Kubiak, especially being an offensive-minded guy, how much does he need that dude, that alpha dog on the defensive side of the ball, to be able to step up and really be a representative of an extension for him in that Raiders locker room? That's question number 4. Like I said, easily could be number 1 for many of you out there. And then finally, for me, what is it that you want the identity of this Raiders team to be? What is your vision? Because how many times have we gone through a coach and gone through like 4 or 5 weeks of the season, and it's like, man, what's the identity of this team? I don't know. This is what I think the identity is supposed to be, but what is it really? Like last year with Pete Carroll and Chip Kelly, none of us ever knew what the identity of the team was, right? Under Antonio Pierce, we all thought we knew what the identity was going to be. Injuries started to pile up, and that didn't happen. The defense wasn't the strong defensive-minded team that we thought it was going to be. The run game obviously didn't get going, and the quarterback play was terrible, and that led to him being one and done. Josh McDaniels, you thought he was going to be a very creative offensive mind, right? And it wasn't that, right? You thought you were going to see a lot of creativity in the offensive game plan. It wasn't, right? You thought you were going to see a lot of versatility, being able to switch things up, not game to game, but half to half, going into the locker room, making a few adjustments, coming out. Like, you just thought that you were going to see that. What you saw from the Patriots really throughout the course of the year, and I know that they played an easy schedule and they lost the Super Bowl, but he was able to get the most out of Drake May. That's what we all thought we were going to see with Josh McDaniels. At least that's what I thought. Obviously, that didn't happen, right? And then even Geno Smith last year and Pete Carroll and Chip Kelly, we're going to be a very explosive offense. Yeah, not so much. There was no explosiveness at all. So what is it? What is the identity of this Raiders team? What is the vision for the Silver and Black, according to Klint Kubiak? So those are the questions that I'm assuming are going to get asked. I plan on asking a few of them. I'm sure a few more of them will be asked by others as well. But it starts at 11 o'clock a.m. this morning at the Raiders facility. So I look forward to that. And then, of course, they'll go through the car wash after that, meeting with me, meeting with JT, meeting with different digital parts of the Raiders, Raiders.com and all that. So that we should get a lot of really good Raiders content coming up today over there at the practice facility when Klint Kubiak is formally introduced to the media and the Raider Nation. What's on your mind? Your calls and texts will close out the show. 707-654-4693. We hear from you next. Before I get to that, though, I do want to tell you about another great sponsor, and that is TurboTax. Tax season doesn't have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax Full Service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert, start to finish, without the stress or the guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with the local TurboTax expert in person or even connect online. They handle everything: W-2s, self-employed forms, and work to get you every single deduction possible. You can upload your documents, go about your day, and get updates right in the TurboTax app. It's a huge time saver and gives real peace of mind knowing an expert is handling it. So for a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in if a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year. Just make sure you file by February 28th, 18 days from now. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit TurboTax.com/local to book your appointment today. Here we go, Raider Nation. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Your calls and texts straight off that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. We'll start things off with a real quick text from Assassin's Ghost. He says, hey, Q, Assassin's Ghost here real quick. We aren't getting Walker after his performance he had. He's about to collect the bag, and it won't be with the Raiders. That's all. Peace, Assassin's Ghost. Quick, fast, and hurry on the text. Yeah, Kenneth Walker, he's a free agent. It would be a nice 1-2 punch to see Ashton Jeanty and Walker. But one, he's going to want to get more of the burn. And you just need a compliment to Ashton Jeanty. You don't need a guy that could be your lead back, right? You want to have guys that could be backups, right? Guys that aren't going to be, like I said, the number one back. And he's going to get some good money on the open market. I don't know what that's going to be like because he's a running back. But with that being said, that's not where the Raiders need to prioritize their money anyway. They need to prioritize their money on the offensive line first, and then everything else follows after that, right? Maybe the offensive line, defensive line, maybe some secondary guys. Like, there's probably a lot more that they can do with their free agency money, salary cap space money, as opposed to just go out and get a running back, especially when you already have Ashton Jeanty. They probably can get a good running back that can run in that scheme out of the draft as well and have a guy that's sitting behind Ashton Jeanty. So thanks so much for that text. I do appreciate you. Up next, got a quick call from Patrick from Fresno. He's calling to talk about the Raiders hiring a Klint Kubiak. Here's Patrick from the 559.
Hey, Q. Ari, what a beautiful day, Raider Nation. We got Klint Kubiak. Q, I just had to call you up. I just heard the news, 5 years. Whew, there's a lot of questions, but for now, let's just celebrate. I mean, we still need defensive coordinator. You know, I see if you're going to talk on who he should hire. But right now, I'm celebrating. We've finally got an offensive-minded head coach, and I have a feeling he's going to do great as a first-time head coach. Give a shout-out to Tom and John Spytek for getting it done. Let's go, Raider Nation. It's time to flip the page. It's a new day. Let's go, Raiders! This is Patrick from Fresno. See ya.
Big Pat, thanks for the call. Appreciate you. And, yeah, it does feel like a new opportunity. The 5-year deal was a big deal as far as I'm concerned. I was thinking 5 or 6 years, one way, one how. They gave it to him. It gives him time to build this thing up. Hopefully it's going to be the last hire that the Raiders do at the head coaching position for a while. But that's the reason why they gave John Gruden the 10-year deal. They didn't want to have to go through this process. It was nice to go 2 or 3 years without going through a head coaching search. They need to get back to that. Have a guy go and get ready to get into his final year of his deal, and then they have to make the decision to re-up him or not. And hopefully he's doing well enough where they're like, yeah, that's a no-brainer. Boom, re-up him. That would be a positive. But first things first, you got to worry about, right now. And, getting the 5-year deal, again, like I said, is a big deal to give him the security that knows he's not going to be one and done. Thanks so much for the call. Definitely appreciate you. Up next, got another text from Ohio Raider 419. Q, what's good? Finally, long season's over. Let's get our coach. Let's get to work. As a longtime Raider fan, I have not been this excited since Beast Mode had the crowd hyped 8 years ago with his dance at the Oakland Coliseum. Man, that was so cool. Let's get back to some winning ways in Raider Nation in 2026. Ohio Raider in the 419. Just win, baby. Yeah. As far as I'm concerned, the campaign trail is Kubiak Mendoza 2026, right? That's what it is. Obviously, not trying to be political, just being funny about the situation. Those are the two guys that you look at. Klint Kubiak as the head coach and Fernando Mendoza as the quarterback, right? The franchise quarterback. And you get those two guys. You already have Bowers at the tight end position. You have Ashton Jeanty. You get that offensive line in place. Then all of a sudden your offense is looking good. You got heavy lifting you got to do on the defensive side of things as well, but it feels like a new chapter. It feels like, the Raiders have an opportunity to make some really good decisions and get this organization back to where it needs to be. As Kevin Harlan told me last week when I was at the Moscone Center on Radio Row, the league is in a better place when the Raiders are good, right? His father worked for the Green Bay Packers for a long time. That's a historic organization. He said the Raiders are the same thing. When the Raiders are good, the NFL is better. It's just that simple. The Raiders need to get back to being good and getting back to what a commitment to excellence is and getting back to just win, baby. They need to do that and make that mean something more than a T-shirt that you buy at Wally's World. Thanks so much for the text. Definitely appreciate you. Up next, got a call from Raider X. He's calling to talk about the hiring of Klint Kubiak, the coordinators, the offensive line, and the blocking scheme. Here's Raider X.
Yo, Q, this is Raider X. Just really quick, it looks like the ink's about to dry. The pen's going to go down on paper, and we're going to sign this contract. Now let's just see which coordinators go into place. Which defense are we going to, we're going to focus on that defensive line, or are we going to get some lanky or change to, more of a man defense? And then also the offensive line. How are they going to go? Are they going to actually, start working with that overall, again with the power, or are they going to go more of a zone and be a little bit more fluid? And on top of that, are they going to sit there and try to draft in that or grab some guys? And then we're going to go back into, Reggie McKenzie, the redheaded GM. When he went and picked up Osemele, and I think it was Rodney Hudson, 2 out of the overall, 5 men right there on the offensive line. I think that's a good mixture just to set the tone and give the tutelage, especially at a center, and then overall getting getting that smart, and then also getting that nasty in those 2 positions. Try to get your thoughts, because I think that's the key of how they coordinate the coordinators. All right, this is Raider X out.
X-Man, thanks for the call. Yes, the coordinators. That's going to be an interesting process. How quickly can that hiring take off? Can it be put in place before the scouting combine, which is right around the corner? Pretty soon I'll be coming to you live from Indianapolis. Looking forward to being there. Obviously, it's a big year having the number 1 overall pick. But traditionally, when it comes to the zone blocking scheme, that's what the Shanahans and the Kubiaks run, right? And I expect them to do that as well, or I expect Kubiak to do that as well, right? Salary cap space needs to be used to improve that offensive line and the draft. You got to have guys in place that can run the scheme. Simple. That's going to be one of the most critical decisions that this team makes as far as I'm concerned. Who's going to be the starting 5 on that offensive line? Who's going to be the offensive line coach? It can't be a Brendan Carroll type situation. It's got to be someone that's very well versed on what they're doing, knows what they're looking for, and knows how to coach it up so the players can go out there and execute it, as opposed to what the Raiders had last year where guys didn't know what they were doing. When a guy like Marshall Newhouse sits down with me, and maybe I'll bring that audio to the show, he sits down with me on Radio Row and says, Q, I was going over film, and I didn't know what the goal was, what they were trying to block. What was it? And again, I'm not trying to dog the mess out of Brendan Carroll, but when a guy who played offensive line in the league for a very long time says, I don't know what their goal they were trying to achieve, what that was, that tells you all you need to know. It's funny. I go to the barbershop every Saturday, and my barber D, he said that, and I was in there when this happened. He had a lady bring her son to him to get his hair cut. And she wanted, she pointed to a picture on the wall and said, this is what I want. And he said, your son's hair won't do that. It's not going to work. She said, no, that's what I want. He said, I know, I understand, but it's not going to come out that way. Your son's hair won't do that. No, this is what I want. So do the best you can. Okay. So he did it. And of course, after it was done, she didn't like it. She said, that was not the look I was trying to achieve, right? That was not the goal I was trying to achieve, which makes me go back and think what Marshall Newhouse told me. I don't know what the goal was. I don't know what look they were trying to achieve with what they were blocking or who they were trying to block, but it wasn't it, right? That's all I could think of is that situation at the barbershop. That was not the goal. That was not the look I was trying to achieve. We use that as a joke all the time at the barbershop. Anytime I say that, my man just starts dying laughing. That was not the look we're trying to achieve. That's what's going to happen. I'm going to use that as a theme throughout the course of the year, right? If there's a bad play that happens or something happens in a game, right? That was not the goal. That was not what the Raiders were trying to achieve on that play right there. But X-Man, thanks so much for the call. Definitely appreciate you. We'll close things out with a text from Jolly Roger J. He says, hey, Q, Jolly Roger J, I got a quick question for you. Now that we got our guy in Klint Kubiak as the head coach, does this mean he'll be installing the new offense and calling the plays, seeing as he's arguably the best in the business, or will he be hiring an offensive coordinator for that role? Love what you do. Love what Ari does. Jolly Roger J on the text. Thanks so much. And yeah, I'm assuming, and that could be another question that we ask him, and it's really an assumption, but you are going to be calling plays, right? Because he's been in his bag. That's what we've really been impressed with. I can't imagine that he's not going to be calling plays, but that'll be something. I'll go ahead and throw another question in there, right? Hey, are you planning on calling the plays? I know he'll have an offensive coordinator. It'll be the quarterback coach, I do believe, from the Seahawks right now. That's the guy that's been with them every step of the way, but he won't be calling plays. He'll just be the OC, and he'll be in place with the Raiders, and then go from there. And maybe at some point, Klint Kubiak turns the play calling over to him. Maybe he gets an opportunity to go and be a head coach somewhere else, or be an offensive coordinator that gets to call plays somewhere else at some stage of the game. Who knows? But I fully expect that the quarterback coach there in Seattle to be the next the next offensive coordinator, I should say, of the Raiders. But Klint Kubiak, expect him to be calling the plays. But we'll ask him that question. We'll make sure to ask him that question when we meet with him this morning at 11 a.m. Well, that's going to do it for today's show. We got a call from Eduardo in Santa Ana. We'll get that tomorrow. Obviously, we'll have plenty of reaction from the press conference from Klint Kubiak and some of the Raider alumni that'll be in the building. And from what I've been told, it's going to be a lot of Raider alumni in the building. So that's something to look forward to. So hopefully we have plenty to bring to the show. Obviously, we'll get back to more calls and texts. Later on this morning, we do have the Raider Squad Show with Chantel Chan, Lincoln Kennedy, and myself. That starts at 7:30 a.m. And if you're a subscriber to the show, then you'll already get your notifications. Quick, fast, in a hurry. 1 hour long, 1 hour strong. So until then, Raider Nation, make sure you tune in for the press conference at 11 a.m. Pacific time. You can hear it on Raider Nation Radio 920. You can also stream it on the Raiders streaming channels as well. So until tomorrow, Raider Nation, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family. Most importantly, as always, just win, baby.